The ballroom went silent when the video froze on Julian's face. Not my face. His. On the left side of the screen was the AI clip he had shown everyone, me kissing a man I had never met. On the right side was the original file. Julian, sitting in our study at 1:42 a.m., dragging my wedding video into the AI software while Serena's voice whispered through his laptop speaker. Use the anniversary footage, she said. Her smile looks more believable there. A glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered against the marble floor. Julian turned toward me slowly. For the first time that night, he did not look like my husband. He looked like a man watching his own execution begin. Naomi, he whispered, turn it off. I looked at him, then at the Montclair family, then at every board member who had believed his lie. And I said, no. They haven't seen this second file yet. The first time I saw Julian Cross beg in front of people who used to worship him, he was not begging me to forgive him. He was begging me to stop the truth. That was the strange part. Not the frozen faces around the private auction hall. Not the champagne glasses suspended in rich hands. Not the Montclair family staring at him like he had just spilled poison on a priceless painting. The strange part was his voice. Small, thin, terrified. But to understand why my husband was begging me in front of the most powerful people in his world, you have to understand what he stole from me first. My name is Naomi Bennet, and for 9 years I was married to Julian Cross. If you ask people about Julian before that night, they would have used beautiful words. Refined, brilliant, disciplined, elegant, born for leadership. Julian was the managing director of Aurelian House, one of the most prestigious auction firms in New York. Aurelian handled the kind of objects people whispered around. Stolen paintings returned after 50 years, diamonds that once belonged to queens, handwritten letters from presidents, sculptures smuggled through wars, film reels sealed in private family vaults. Julian loved that world, not because he loved history, because he loved ownership. He liked standing beside things nobody else could touch. He liked saying words like provenance, discretion, legacy, and authenticity while wearing a suit that cost more than most people's rent. He knew how to lower his voice in front of wealthy clients. He knew when to pause before naming a price. He knew how to make people believe he had been born with taste instead of trained to perform it. And for a long time, I believed him too. That is embarrassing to admit now, but it is the truth. I believed in the man who brought me coffee when I worked late. I believed in the man who read old letters with me in bed and made jokes about dead aristocrats having better handwriting than modern lawyers. I believed in the man who cried when my mother, Ruth, gave us a framed photograph from our wedding and said, "Protect each other when the world gets loud." Julian had held my hand that day. He had promised he would. That is the terrible thing about betrayal. It does not usually arrive from a stranger. It wears a familiar face. It knows where you keep the spare keys. It knows which memories will hurt the most when used against you. I worked as a private archival media specialist and authenticity analyst. My job was simple in description and complicated in practice. I proved whether old things were real. Old videos, damaged photographs, rare audio recordings, private letters, digital scans, disputed film reels, altered archives, forged signatures, manipulated evidence. Museums called me. Insurance firms called me. Auction houses called me quietly, especially when they wanted to know the truth before the truth became expensive. That was how I met Julian. Aurelian House had acquired a private film reel supposedly showing a famous actress in an unreleased screen test from the 1940s. The seller wanted millions. The board wanted glamour. Julian wanted the commission. I watched the reel for 19 minutes and told them it was fake. Julian hated me for 3 days. Then he invited me to dinner. "You ruined my sale," he said, smiling over a glass of wine. I saved your reputation. That depends on who you ask. Ask someone honest. He laughed then. A real laugh. At least I thought it was real. 3 months later, we were together. 2 years later, we were married. For a while, being loved by Julian felt like being chosen by a room I was never invited into. He introduced me to collectors, curators, estate lawyers, museum directors. He would place his hand at the small of my back and say, "My wife can tell if a century is lying." People laughed. I laughed too. I did not yet understand that Julian loved my gift most when it served his world, not when it threatened it. The trouble began with the Montclair collection. The Montclairs were old money in the way that makes new money nervous. Their family had owned shipping lines, newspapers, rail shares, and half a dozen estates nobody could afford to maintain anymore. Their collection had been hidden from the public for nearly 70 years. Paintings, antique jewelry, political letters, rare books, sculptures, private film reels, objects with rumors attached to them, objects that had survived wars, lawsuits, marriages, and deaths. Aurelian House wanted the exclusive rights to sell it. The deal was worth hundreds of millions. Whoever secured it would become untouchable. For Julian, it was more than a transaction. It was a coronation. The current chairwoman of Aurelian House, Claudia Wren, was preparing to step back from daily leadership. Everyone knew Julian wanted her seat. Securing the Montclair collection would make him the obvious successor. He became obsessed. He flew to the Montclair estate in Rhode Island twice in 1 month. He took private calls on the balcony. He stopped sleeping properly. He started using phrases like legacy alignment and client confidence in our kitchen, which should have been illegal before coffee. Then came Serena Voss. Serena was Julian's executive assistant, though calling her an assistant felt like calling a blade a kitchen tool. She was precise, quiet, and beautiful in a way that never looked accidental. She wore cream, ivory, pale gray, soft colors that made her seem harmless until she spoke, and you realized she had been measuring everyone in the room. At first, I did not hate her. I noticed her. There is a difference. She laughed at Julian's smallest jokes. She anticipated his sentences. She sent him messages after midnight marked urgent, though somehow urgent always came with perfume in the air when she entered a room the next day. Julian praised her constantly. Serena understands pressure. Serena knows how to protect a room. Serena never makes things personal. That last one was meant for me. Julian had started saying I made things personal whenever I asked a reasonable question. Why was Serena calling on Sunday morning? Why did Julian change the password to the home archive account? Why had Aurelian's creative studio sent a render package to his private laptop? Why did he close the screen when I entered the room? Each question became proof of my instability. That is how men like Julian work. They do not answer the question. They punish you for asking it. One night, 2 months before the Montclair dinner, I found him in the study with his laptop angled away from the door. It was past midnight. The apartment was dark except for the blue light on his face. "What are you doing?" I asked. He closed the laptop halfway. "Work. At 1 in the morning? You, of all people, should understand late work." "I understand late work. I don't understand hiding." His jaw tightened. "I'm not hiding." "Then open the laptop." He smiled. Not warmly. Carefully. "Naomi, do you hear yourself?" There it was. The little trap. Make the woman sound emotional before she says anything emotional. I hear myself clearly. No. You hear suspicion. There's a difference. I looked at the laptop. He looked at me. Something passed between us then. Not proof. Not yet. Just the smell of smoke before the fire becomes visible. He stood, kissed my forehead, and said, "Go to bed." I did not move. He walked past me. That night, I did not sleep. The first fake file arrived 8 days later. It came from an unknown number while I was in my restoration studio examining a damaged reel from a private collector in Boston. My phone buzzed once. I opened the message. No words, just a video. It showed me in the hallway of a boutique hotel. The angle looked like security footage. Grainy, distant, believable. A man stood close to me, his hand on my waist. His face was turned away, but he was handsome in the generic way AI thinks women destroy marriages.
Tall.
Dark hair. Expensive coat.
He leaned in.
I kissed him. Then we disappeared into a room. The clip was 11 seconds long. I watched it once. Then again. Then a third time with the sound off. My first feeling was not fear. It was insult. Because it was good but not perfect. The lighting on my cheek did not match the hallway lamp. My left earring moved, but my shadow did not. The man's fingers bent too smoothly when they touched my waist. The hotel door number changed shape between frames. AI had become terrifying, but lies still had seams. I downloaded the file, isolated the frames, and checked the metadata. Most of it had been wiped. But not all. There was a partial export signature buried in the compression structure. That meant a tool had touched it. A professional one. Not a teenage prank app. Not some cheap online face swap toy. Someone had built this carefully. Someone had trained it on me. I called Julian. He did not answer. I called again. Nothing. 20 minutes later, he texted. In Montclair Prep. Is this urgent? I typed. Did you send me a video? Then deleted it. Something inside me said, not yet. So I wrote, we need to talk tonight. His reply came after 7 minutes. Can it wait? Serena and I are reviewing client materials late. Serena and I. I stared at those words until the screen dimmed. The second fake came 6 days later. A photo this time. Me at a restaurant table with the same artificial man. His hand covered mine. My wedding ring was visible. My face looked soft and guilty. A glass of wine sat between us. There was a candle on the table because apparently even fabricated adultery needed atmosphere. This fake had one mistake. My ring was on the wrong hand. Small error. Fatal error. I saved it. The third fake went to Julian. At least that was what he wanted me to believe. He confronted me on a Sunday morning while I was making tea. He entered the kitchen barefoot, holding his phone like it carried a body. Who is he? I turned. Who? He placed the phone on the counter and pressed play. The hotel hallway video. This version had audio. A voice that sounded almost like mine whispered, Julian can never know. Almost. That was the word. Almost like mine. The rhythm was wrong. The breath pattern was too clean. Whoever cloned my voice had enough samples to imitate me, but not enough to understand how I sounded when afraid, angry, or lying. I watched the clip. Then I looked at my husband. His eyes were red, but not wet. That detail mattered. Real grief is messy. Julian's grief looked staged, like a room prepared before guests arrived. Where did you get this? I asked. His mouth opened slightly. That's your first question? Yes. Not denial? Not shame? Not even panic. Where did you get it? He laughed once. It was sharp and ugly. You are unbelievable. Julian. His name. I don't know him. His name, Naomi. I don't know him because he is not real. He slammed his hand against the counter. The teaspoon jumped. Stop insulting me. I'm telling you the truth.
No.
You're doing what you always do, turning pain into analysis. I stared at him. I need the original file. He froze.
What?
The original. The version sent to you. I need it. So, you can destroy it? So I can prove it's fake.
He smiled then.
A small, careful smile. You always think truth is enough. That sentence stayed with me. Because he was right. Truth is not enough. Truth in the wrong room is just noise. Truth without timing can be buried. Truth without witnesses can be called hysteria. Truth without leverage can die while the liar adjusts the lighting. So I stopped trying to convince him, and I started preparing for the room. The Montclair Collection preview dinner was scheduled for April 27th at Aurelian House. It was not just a company dinner. It was a private unveiling, a client seduction, and a leadership test dressed in black tie. The auction hall would be transformed for the evening. Paintings on velvet walls. Jewelry beneath glass. Climate-controlled display cases. A private screening of old Montclair family film reels. Champagne from bottles older than some of the assistants serving it. Claudia Wren would speak. Eleanor Montclair, the family matriarch, would attend. Sebastian Montclair, her nephew and legal representative, would sit with the board. Julian would present the collection strategy. If he succeeded, he would become the future of Aurelian House. If he failed, he would become a problem. That was when I understood the fake affair was not only about leaving me. It was about narrative. Julian wanted to arrive at that dinner as a wounded man of dignity. A husband betrayed, but still composed. A leader under personal pressure who remained elegant, restrained, and loyal to the institution. And Serena? She would be the quiet woman who helped him survive. The replacement already polished for display. A woman like me could be dangerous to that image. A wife who questioned, analyzed, noticed too much. A wife who might expose what Julian had done to secure the Montclair deal. So he needed me discredited before I ever opened my mouth. He did not just want a divorce. He wanted the official version of me destroyed. The next morning, I went to my studio before sunrise. My studio sat above an old bookbinder shop in Brooklyn. It smelled like dust, paper, coffee, and old machines. There were shelves of labeled drives, climate boxes, film scanners, audio decks, magnifiers, and a locked cabinet where I kept originals waiting for authentication. Ruth Bennet, my mother, used to say I had built a church for evidence. She was not wrong. My mother had worked most of her life restoring costumes and curtains for old theaters. She could look at fabric and tell if someone had changed a hem 40 years after the dress was made. She taught me that everything leaves a trace. Thread remembers. Paper remembers. Film remembers. People lie. Materials confess. That morning, I began with our home archive. 3 years earlier, Julian had installed a high-end home security and media system. Cameras at the front door, kitchen, study, hallway, and balcony. He said it was for safety. I said it was too much. He told me my work made me paranoid. But when the installer asked who should manage the archive, Julian pointed at me. Naomi handles reality, he joked. So, I created the admin account. Then he forgot. I did not. I logged in and searched the study recordings. Nothing. Then the guest room. Nothing. Then the hallway outside the study. At 1:42 a.m. on March 13th, the motion camera captured Julian carrying a laptop, a glass of whiskey, and my old wedding video drive into the study. The study camera had been disabled, but the balcony camera reflected the study window. That was the mistake. Luxury glass betrays people beautifully. The reflection was faint, but I enhanced it frame by frame. Julian sat at his desk. On his screen were images of me.
Dozens of them.
Wedding footage. Travel clips. Voice memos. Old videos from anniversaries and birthdays. Then Serena appeared on a video call. The camera audio was weak. I extracted it, cleaned the noise, and played it back through headphones.
Her voice came through first.
Use the anniversary footage. Her smile looks more intimate there. Then Julian.
No.
Too happy. I need guilt. Something soft but ashamed. I stopped the playback. For a few seconds, I could not breathe. There is a special kind of violence in hearing your happiness discussed as raw material. He was not just faking an affair. He was cutting my memories into pieces and feeding them to a machine. I played the file again. Then again. Then I downloaded the raw archive, created a verified copy, and logged the extraction time. After that, I kept searching. March 15th, Julian and Serena testing my cloned voice. March 18th. Serena suggesting the fake man should look like someone from Naomi's gallery world. March 21st, Julian saying, once Sebastian sees it, he'll understand why I need distance before the dinner. March 23rd, Serena saying, and Claudia? Julian answering, Claudia values discretion. If she thinks I'm protecting the house from scandal, she'll trust me more. There it was. Aurelian House. The board. The Montclairs. This was no longer a private betrayal. This was business strategy. I called Malcolm Reed that afternoon. Malcolm was a senior trustee connected to Eleanor Montclair and one of the few powerful men I trusted. Years earlier, I had authenticated a damaged film reel for a museum he funded. The reel turned out to be real, but the donation paperwork had been forged. Malcolm liked that I told him both truths. He answered with his usual calm. Naomi Bennet. Either someone is lying or something is burning. Both. He went quiet. What happened? If a managing director used synthetic media to frame his wife and influence a private collection deal, who would need to see the evidence before the dinner? Another pause. Then Malcolm said, what did Julian do? Something arrogant. The next morning, Malcolm came to my studio with Iris Kwan and Theo March. Iris was an art crime and reputation attorney with the stillness of a woman who had made rich men regret underestimating paperwork. Theo was a media restoration engineer who looked permanently annoyed by bad compression. I played the files. When Serena's voice said, use the anniversary footage, Iris's eyes sharpened. When Julian said, I need guilt, Malcolm closed his hand into a fist. When the March 23rd file ended, Theo leaned toward the screen. We need chain of custody, raw archive, device logs, export signatures, tool residue, anything connecting the generated files to Julian or Aurelian systems. I can get some of that. Some won't be enough, Iris said. I know. She studied me. Can you get the rest without alerting him? I thought of Julian sleeping beside me. Julian calling me paranoid. Julian preparing to use my face as a weapon in a room full of people who judged authenticity for a living. Yes, I said. I can. For the next 10 days, I became two women. At home, I was quiet. I made coffee. I answered questions. I let Julian believe the videos had shaken me. I let him believe I was ashamed of a thing I had not done. I let him believe he had moved faster than my suspicion. In private, I built the case. Theo traced the fake files to a rendering environment used by Aurelian House's digital preview studio. That studio was normally used to reconstruct damaged artworks, produce auction visuals, and create immersive previews for private clients. Julian had access through executive approval. Serena had project permissions under the label Montclair Digital Presentation Assets. Inside that folder, Theo found hidden exports. Not just of me. There were test renders, voice models, face maps, a deleted project titled NB Scenario. NB. Naomi Bennet. I stared at those letters for a long time. It is one thing to know someone hates you. It is another thing to discover they gave your destruction a file name. Then Iris found the messaging drafts. One read. Julian Cross has recently endured a painful personal betrayal. His discretion during this difficult period reflects the stability and restraint required for global leadership. I laughed when I read it, not because it was funny, because if I did not laugh, I would have broken something. He had turned my fake affair into a campaign slogan. That was when the sadness left me. Not all of it. Grief has roots. But above it, something colder grew. By the morning of the Montclair dinner, the evidence package was ready. Original home archive files, reflected study footage, audio enhancement reports, tool export signatures, Aurelian studio access logs, Serena's project permissions, crisis messaging drafts, the fake videos, the original files, the parent files, the entire family tree of a lie. Julian watched me get dressed that evening. I wore a black velvet dress with long sleeves and a high neckline. Simple.
Severe.
No jewelry except my mother's small gold earrings. Julian stood in the doorway. You're coming? Yes. I thought after everything, you might prefer privacy. Privacy for whom? His jaw moved. Naomi, tonight is important. I know. For once, I need you not to make this about us. I looked at him through the mirror. You already did. His eyes narrowed. I'm trying to protect you. That sentence almost made me turn around. Instead, I put on the second earring. No, I said softly. You're trying to protect the version of me that cannot answer back. He stared at me. For 1 second, I wondered if he knew. Then his phone buzzed. Serena. His face relaxed. He looked down, typed quickly, and said, The car is here. The private auction hall at Aurelian House looked like a cathedral built for money. Tall black marble columns, gold light, velvet ropes, paintings suspended on dark walls like silent witnesses, glass cases holding diamonds, watches, letters, porcelain, and objects whose labels used words like attributed to, circle of, possibly, disputed. That last word followed me all night. Disputed. A disputed painting could still sell. A disputed signature could still ruin a reputation. A disputed woman could still be punished before she was proven real. Guests moved through the hall with champagne and soft voices. Eleanor Montclair sat near the front, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, wearing emeralds that looked less like jewelry and more like inheritance. Sebastian Montclair stood behind her, checking his phone too often. Claudia Wren floated through the room in a black gown, smiling like a judge at a funeral. Serena approached us near the private screening area. She wore ivory.
Of course she did.
Naomi, she said, you look beautiful. Serena, I said, you look prepared. Her smile flickered. Julian touched her elbow. Only for a second. But I saw it. So did Malcolm from across the room. He gave no sign. Good. Drama belonged to Julian. Evidence belonged to me. Dinner began at 8. At 8:20, Claudia Wren praised the Montclair family's trust. At 8:30, Eleanor Montclair spoke about stewardship, legacy, and the responsibility of preserving truth. That word landed inside me. Truth. At 8:40, Julian took the stage. He looked perfect. That was the cruelty of it. Some villains look like monsters. Julian looked like a man who had been edited for public approval. He thanked Claudia. He thanked Eleanor.
He thanked the board.
He thanked Serena for protecting the integrity of the Montclair presentation through difficult weeks. Serena lowered her eyes.
Soft.
Humble.
False.
Then Julian looked at me. The room followed. My hands went cold. I had hoped to keep my private pain private, he said, voice low. But private pain can become institutional risk when it touches trust. A murmur moved through the hall. I felt people turn toward me before I saw them. Julian continued. Over the past month, I discovered a betrayal in my marriage. I will not humiliate anyone with unnecessary details, but I believe leadership requires honesty. And tonight, before this house asks the Montclair family to trust us with its legacy, I must be transparent about the personal crisis I have been carrying. Then the screen behind him changed. The fake video appeared.
Me.
The artificial man. The hotel hallway. The kiss. A soft gasp moved through the room. Not loud. Worse. Elegant shock. Polite hunger. Rich people pretending not to enjoy scandal while leaning toward it. Julian turned his face away from the screen as if the sight wounded him. Beautiful performance. Then he said, I do not show this out of cruelty. I show it because deception cannot be allowed to hide behind beauty. That was when I stood.
Slowly.
My chair made almost no sound, but the room felt it.
Julian saw me.
Naomi, he said gently. Please don't.
That please was not for me.
It was for them. It said, watch how unstable she is. Watch how patient I am. I walked toward the control table. Security shifted. Malcolm stood. Iris stood. Theo adjusted his glasses and opened his laptop. I stopped beneath the screen and looked up at Julian. You said deception cannot be allowed to hide behind beauty. His face tightened. This is not the time. I smiled.
No, Julian.
This is your company dinner. This is the Montclair preview. This is the room where authenticity is supposed to matter. Claudia Wren stood. Mrs. Cross. Bennet, I said. The room went still. My name is Naomi Bennet. Julian laughed softly into the microphone. Naomi is understandably emotional. I looked at him.
No.
Naomi is documented. Then Theo pressed one key. The fake video froze. The screen split. On the left was Julian's fake hotel clip. On the right was the original reflected study footage from March 13th. Julian at his desk. My wedding video drive beside his laptop. My face on a screen. Serena on video call. Her voice filled the auction hall. Use the anniversary footage. Her smile looks more intimate there. Then Julian's voice.
No. Too happy.
I need guilt. Something soft but ashamed. The hall died. Not quieted.
Died.
Julian turned toward the screen. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Serena stepped backward, as if the floor had shifted. I took the microphone from the control table. This is the original file, I said. Extracted from my home archive, verified with chain of custody, and reviewed by independent counsel and a media authentication engineer. Julian moved toward me. Turn it off, he whispered. I looked at him.
No.
The video continued. Serena's voice again. The fake man should look like someone from Naomi's gallery world. Then Julian. Once Sebastian sees it, he'll understand why I need distance before the dinner. Every eye in the room moved to Sebastian Montclair. He went pale. Eleanor turned her head very slowly toward her nephew. Sebastian, she said. He did not answer. The screen changed again. March 23rd. Serena. And Claudia? Julian. Claudia values discretion. If she thinks I'm protecting the house from scandal, she'll trust me more. Claudia Wren's face became stone. I have seen old paintings crack less dramatically than that woman's expression. Julian grabbed for the microphone. This is a private marital matter. I stepped back, not because I was afraid, but because Iris had already moved. No, Iris said, her voice clear. It became institutional when fabricated material was shown to board members and client representatives to influence leadership confidence and the Montclair transaction. Theo took the microphone next. The fake video shown tonight was generated using source materials taken from Mrs. Bennet's private media archive. The synthetic exports matched tool signatures from Aurelian House's digital preview studio. A murmur broke through the room. Not gossip now.
Fear.
Because the auction world survives on trust. A house that cannot tell real from fake is not prestigious. It is dangerous. Eleanor Montclair stood. Julian, she said quietly. Did you show my nephew this material before tonight? Julian's face twitched. Eleanor, I was trying to avoid scandal. That is not what I asked. He said nothing. And silence, in rooms like that, is expensive. Before we continue, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because from this moment on, Naomi stops defending herself from the fake affair and starts proving that Julian's entire performance was the real forgery. Claudia ordered the screen paused and called for an emergency private review. But Naomi Bennet had learned from old films, old letters, old lies. You never reveal everything at once. You reveal enough to move the room. Then you let the room ask for the rest. The board, Claudia, Eleanor, Sebastian, Julian, Serena, Iris, Malcolm, Theo, and Aurelian's general counsel, Graham Ellery, moved into the private archive salon behind the auction hall. The salon was smaller, colder, lined with locked cabinets and climate control vents. On the wall hung a portrait of Aurelian House's founder, watching the whole thing with dead disappointment. Julian tried to sit. Claudia said, "Stand." That one word almost made me pity him. Almost. Graham Ellery opened his mouth. We need to be careful about unlawfully obtained private recordings. Iris turned to him. Mr. Ellery, you were shown synthetic compromising material about my client 2 weeks ago and failed to verify it before it affected internal leadership discussions. I suggest you become very careful about which side of negligence you want to stand on. Graham closed his mouth. Theo presented the evidence. First, the fake files. Then, the original reflections. Then, the cleaned audio. Then, Aurelian's studio logs. Then, Serena's permissions. Then, Julian's executive credentials. Then, the crisis messaging draft. Julian Cross has recently endured a painful personal betrayal. His discretion during this difficult period reflects the stability and restraint required for global leadership. Claudia read it twice. Then she looked at Julian. You drafted your wife's humiliation into a promotion strategy. Julian's voice shook.
No.
I prepared for a crisis. You created the crisis. He looked at Eleanor. This has nothing to do with the Montclair collection. Eleanor's face did not move. You involved my family representative. Sebastian looked down. Malcolm spoke for the first time. There is another issue. Julian's eyes snapped toward him. Malcolm placed a folder on the table. Naomi was not the first. The room changed. I watched Julian carefully. His fear sharpened. There it was. Proof. Malcolm opened the folder. Lucien Moreau, a former provenance researcher at Aurelian House, had questioned the ownership trail of a disputed painting Julian wanted to sell privately. 2 weeks later, a compromising audio file appeared, making him sound like he had accepted money from a rival dealer. He resigned. Priya Nair, an insurance valuation specialist, challenged inflated estimates on a jewelry consignment. A manipulated video suggested she had leaked client information.
She was pushed out.
Miles Arquette, a Montclair family archivist, raised concerns about missing reels from the collection inventory. A synthetic voicemail made him look unstable and threatening. Sebastian stopped listening to him. Eleanor placed both hands flat on the table. Julian. He swallowed. Those are unrelated matters. Theo opened his laptop.
No.
They share tool signatures. That sentence landed like a hammer in silk. Julian looked at Serena. Serena looked at the floor. And in that second, I knew she would turn on him before sunrise. People like Serena do not go down with ships. They sell the map to the lifeboats. At 11:18 p.m., Claudia suspended Julian's authority pending investigation. At 11:42, Serena was removed from the premises and her devices were collected. At 12:09, Eleanor Montclair paused the exclusive agreement with Aurelian House. At 12:30, Graham Ellery was placed under independent review. At 1:15, Claudia asked me to provide a formal statement. By then, the auction hall outside was buzzing with controlled panic. Guests were leaving in black coats, whispering into phones. Journalists had caught enough to know something had happened, but not enough to know the shape of it. That would come later. Scandal always finds its frame. At 1:40 a.m., Julian found me in the restoration corridor. I was standing near a glass case containing a cracked porcelain mask from Venice. Its label said, "Restored after fire damage. Original fracture lines visible." That felt almost too obvious. Julian stopped a few feet away. His bow tie hung loose now. His hair had lost its shape. The gold watch on his wrist still flashed beneath the corridor light, but it looked ridiculous, like treasure on a drowning man. "Naomi," he said, "you don't understand what you've done." I looked at him for a long moment. That was always his favorite line. "You don't understand." When I asked about Serena, I did not understand. When I questioned the fake videos, I did not understand. When I checked the archive, I did not understand. When I came to the dinner, I did not understand. But Julian had confused love for blindness. He had confused silence for ignorance. He had confused my memories for materials. And worst of all, he had confused forgery with truth because he had spent too long in rooms where presentation mattered more than proof. "I understand perfectly," I said. He stepped closer. "I could lose everything." "No," I said. "You could lose what you stole."
His face cracked.
"Not fully. Men like Julian do not break cleanly. They fracture, then try to make the pieces look intentional." "I loved you," he whispered. "That almost hurt." "Almost." "No," I said. "You loved being believed by me." He stared at me. Then, for the first time all night, he had no reply. By sunrise, Aurelian House released a statement. Julian Cross had been suspended pending investigation into synthetic media abuse, misconduct, misuse of internal digital systems, and misrepresentation to clients and board members. The Montclair collection sale was postponed. Serena Voss resigned. Graham Ellery stepped aside. Lucien Moreau, Priya Nair, and Miles Arquette were contacted by independent counsel. And me? The internet found me before I found sleep. Someone had recorded enough of the dinner to capture the screen split. Julian's fake video on the left, the original file on the right, Serena's voice saying, "Use the anniversary footage." By noon, the clip was everywhere. By evening, people had found old interviews where Julian praised Aurelian House as a guardian of authenticity. That was the detail that destroyed him online. The internet loves justice, but it worships irony. For 2 weeks, I barely slept. That is the part revenge stories often skip. They show the exposure. They show the villain falling. They show the room gasping and the powerful man losing his crown. They do not show you sitting on your bathroom floor at 3 in the morning because your own face feels like a stolen object. They do not show you watching strangers debate whether the fake video looked real enough to fool them. They do not show you realizing that being believed does not erase the violation. One night, my mother found me in my studio, staring at the old wedding video drive. Ruth Bennet did not ask foolish questions. She sat beside me, took the drive from my hand, and placed it on the table. "He used your joy against you," she said. I nodded. "That does not make the joy false." I looked at her. She touched my face. "Do not let a thief convince you the thing he stole was never yours." That was when I cried. Not loudly. Just enough. 3 months later, Eleanor Montclair called me personally. Not Claudia. Not Malcolm. Eleanor herself. "I would like you to review the disputed film reels in our collection," she said. I almost laughed. "You still want to work with someone connected to the scandal?" My dear, she said, you are the reason we survived it. That was how I became the independent authenticity director for the Montclair Archive Review. Not an employee of Aurelian House. Not Julian's wife. Naomi Bennet. My own name on the contract. My own signature.